Hello, welcome to the Pawn Pro podcast. We have Tyler Wilson here today. I'm going to let him give a little bit of an introduction about himself and what store he's from and where his store is located. Welcome, Tyler.
Thank you. So yeah, my name is Tyler Wilson, and I am the current owner of Pocket Pawn in Ozark, Alabama. We're in South Alabama, right at the Florida line. And yeah, so I do that. I've been in pawnbroking about 14-ish years. I've owned Pocket Pawn for around 8, and I'm current president of the Alabama Pawnbrokers Association.
That's awesome. I think I'm just coming up on 14 years at Bravo too. It's a lucky pawn number.
I think it was about the same time, like 2009, 2010, along the same time.
Yeah, exactly. How did you get started in the pawn industry?
So it's weird, right? So I'm a first generation pawnbroker, which to be honest, a lot of times that's not the case in pawnbroking. Like you're fifth, right? Fourth?
Yeah,
Fifth?
yeah.
Yes, you hear that a lot. Like it's second, third generations. Parents had this. This was not the case for me. So my parents were in insurance, and parents were in insurance, grandparents were in insurance, and that's not something that I really wanted to do. So I went to school, went to college for computer science, and when I was in college, there was a pawn shop in the same city, and my mom actually knew the owner of that pawn shop. So I got up with him, went over there, filled out an application, did no interview, got the job, and just started working. So that was my introduction into pawn.
What did you love about it?
I think at the time I loved just getting a paycheck. Like it was never
Yeah,
something that I wanted to do. I was never like, hey, I'm gonna grow up and be a pawnbroker. I did
right.
information systems and computer science. My plan was to do something in that, programming, something. But as I started doing it, and I got really good at customer service, being friendly with people, sales, wheeling and dealing, like the natural pawn shop stuff. We have a traditional pawn shop, so we're talking about anything from a DVD player to a hand tool to a diamond ring, TVs, just the traditional things. And I think I just love wheeling and dealing and doing that. And I think about, I don't know, a year or two into that, I got really good at it. And the owner of my store, he came to me and he was like, hey, you're really good at this. We want to open a second location, or third or fourth or whatever it was at this time. And I think you could do it. So my immediate question was like, well, how much does it pay? Because I'm 20
Yeah.
something years old. Like I'm going to college. What's the best route? And it just so happened during that time was like the 2010-11 period, which if you remember, gold was just going through the roof at that time.
Yeah.
Silver was $50 an ounce. It was crazy. So the pawn shop financials look great. So he showed
Yeah.
me the statement, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do that.
Totally.
So,
And
and
then
shortly,
what? Go ahead.
shortly after that, I went home to my parents and I said, "Hey guys, I'm going to drop out of college and open up a pawn shop." And they were like, "No, you're not, because we're paying for this college, so you're going to finish." So I finished college. It took like 2 more years, and by that time, I don't know, probably 2014, 15-ish time, and still want to do the whole pawn shop thing. I was just, you know, showing me those numbers, and I thought, hey, I got to do this, right? So 2016 came along. We finally, everything lined up. I got a silent partner involved, and we opened up Pocket Pawn in 2016.
And how'd you pick the name Pocket Pawn?
All right, so I was in IT, I was in computer science, and I wanted to. I think it was probably a project. It was develop a website, develop an app in school,
Yeah.
and I thought I was
Yeah.
like, Pocket Pawn is the perfect name for an app, okay? And the domain was available, which I probably own like 20 domains by this point because I just have an idea and
Uh-huh.
I buy a domain. So I bought the domain. So when it's time to open the pawn shop, I said, I got one. Let's do it.
Yes. Your branding is always super awesome. Like your website looks so nice and Pocket Pawn just rolls off the tongue so well. So you picked a good one.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It's really a stupid name, to be honest with you. Like, what does it even mean for a pawn shop? But it rolls, right? You pick up the
It
phone, it
rolls.
sounds good.
Yeah, it does. So tell me about the experience of opening your first store. What was that like?
All right, so I had been doing it for what, 6 years at that point, and I felt like I knew everything. But I was 26, so I didn't know everything. but I just went anyway, right? So we opened. I did all the things that I knew how to do. Everything was going good. My wife actually had, or me and my wife, not just her, we had our first child. My 10-year-old Heidi, we already had her at that time. And then she was pregnant with our second child, Landon. So I knew we opened in May 2016. I knew that I had, 4 months to the due date in September. I think that's 4 months to be able to get ready, because when you open a new business, you got no employees. So you don't have anything. So I had to make sure that I could have everything ready by that point so I could actually take some time off. So I did that.
Yeah.
We got some employees, got everything rolling. And I don't know, opening a new store is difficult in that, but we didn't decide to have a baby, but having a baby in the same time, I mean, it's just difficult. So I remember we were able to take off, go to the due date, go have the kid at the hospital, and it was great. Everything was perfect. It was the best delivery ever. We took him home. Everything was great. And then that night, he started making noises. So like noises in his sleep, which we've already had a baby before, so we were like, this is normal. We're used to this. Woke up the next morning, he's still having the same noises. So my wife is a nurse practitioner, so she calls the hospital and she's like, hey, this doesn't sound exactly right. Can you listen to it? Nurse says, hey, you need to come on in. So we go to the hospital, and driving there, to be honest with you, I thought nothing of it. Like, I still was just oblivious to what was actually going on at the time. But we got to the hospital, and as soon as we walked in the ER, I swear the entire hospital was in our room all at the same time. Like, it just flooding the room, everybody running around everywhere and trying to help him. And like I said, I'm oblivious. My wife's in healthcare, so she knows a lot of what they're talking about. And I look over her, and she's just in tears, like just crying because she hears all the words that they're saying, talking about intubating him and an IO, which is just a very painful IV. And I'm like, okay, this is serious. So they get us on an ambulance. They get us to the closest big hospital. And when we get there, we finally find out that he's got not one, but 3 heart defects that he was born with that we had no idea about. So I remember it clear as day. I remember the doctor telling us, and it just rocked my world. She said, I asked her, I said, hey, was this anything we could have prevented? Is this anything that how could we have even known about this? And she was like, no, to be honest with you, babies like Landon, they just go to sleep and they don't wake back up. And I was just like, wow. So fast forward, we spent 29 days in the hospital, had 2 surgeries. He's doing great now, by the way. This was 7 years ago. But having to deal with that at the same time as opening the store, that was a huge challenge for us because the hospital was 4 hours away from the pawn shop. So what I would do is I would stay there for one day, leave at 4 o'clock in the morning, drive to the pawn shop, work for 9 hours, drive back 4 hours, and then do it all over again. So super stressful.
So stressful. Yeah, my daughter back in May was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And so we've been learning about that, spending a lot of time in doctors' offices and hospitals. I'm also pregnant and due in December. So a lot of what you're saying resonates with me. Yeah. Business in general and raising kids puts everything in perspective. I am a 5th generation pawnbroker, and I've grown up listening to basically every relative talk about the industry and why it is what it is and why it's essential. And I had this experience 2 months ago where I went to go pick up prescriptions for my daughter, and it was a weekend, and I have insurance, but for some reason they had the insurance, my daughter's birthday was wrong and her gender was wrong in the computer system, and so it was $1,200 out of pocket. And I started freaking out and just what would I do if I didn't have a credit card that had a $1,200 limit? I would be going to my house and I would be pulling out everything that I own and I would be taking it to a store, and it was just this really full circle moment where you never really know. I grew up at a loan counter, not really understanding why people were coming in, but understanding that it was out of desperation, really. And I just felt so desperate in that moment. It was this like really full circle moment of being a pawnbroker and understanding in a new light why people walk through the door. Just like
Right.
so powerful.
Yeah, you never know what people are going through, and when you're going to need something like that. That's one of the things with being in the hospital. I always tell my wife about it and tell others about it is your world is just stopped, and you have this going on, but everybody is outside continuing. Like even as we talk right now, there's people going through things that, that is just unimaginable.
Yeah. And being on those floors with all those sick kids is just like a whole nother experience that you never want to be part of that club. But once you're in it, like there's just this instant empathy that happens when you find out somebody else's kid's been in hospital, because it's just like, it's the worst.
It takes a whole new meaning on what actually matters in life, because when you boil it all down to, like you said, when your daughter was diagnosed with that, like nothing else that's going on in your life matters at that point. Like, I'm assuming like Bravo, work, none of that stuff matters. It is strictly family. And
Yeah,
it just gives you a new perspective on what, success and happiness actually is.
totally. Yeah. Okay, so you've got a daughter, a son, and one little one at home.
I've got,
Juggling, big family, wife,
yeah,
store.
yeah. So
How do you do all that?
that's the balance, right? And I was thinking about this morning, like, and it's been throughout my whole career. Like when you start your career, you think of what success looks like in the pawn shop or in your business, and you're like, okay, well, if I could just make X, that's success. Or if I could just have a balance of this, that's success. But in actuality, your success is it's different for everybody, and it's different at different moments. So um, I think family plays a big part in ours. I know you've probably seen us at the pawn conventions. I'm one of the few that brings the entire crew every single time.
Yeah.
But it's important to me. Like we enjoy it, and they get to come along for that.
Yeah, I love that. I think about like success sort of being redefined as fulfillment. And like, when you think about what makes your life fulfilling, it's more than like wealth or career. It's relationships and spirituality and a million other things, and trying to fill all of those little like pieces of the pie. I always like say my pizza pie. Like I've got a slice of pizza that's like, you know, gone. Um, that's fulfillment. I think it gets redefined over and over as you get older, and your priorities sort of shift around. But success is different as you get older.
That's right. Yeah.
What are some of the key kind of trends or things that you're seeing right now? Pawn industry's kind of loan balances are on fire, but what are you seeing? What are you experiencing?
So in Alabama, the things that we're experiencing is kind of similar to what everybody else has going on. Loan balances shooting through the roof. The amount of it's crazy the amount of pickups this year. So redemptions has always been like huge during March, April tax season. That didn't happen this year. We had like a tax day, maybe two. So cash flow, I mean, having issues with cash flow because you're expecting those seasons to happen and they just don't happen. So you have to make new strategies, figure out how you're going to handle that for the rest of the year. Sales have been strong. But yeah, loans are really taking a hit this year, loans and buys.
Is that what you would say has been your biggest challenge so far this year, is cash flow and making sure you have enough money to lend?
100%. And that's something that I'm learning about too. When I first started in the pawn shop, if you would ask me what cash flow means, I had no idea. Like,
Yeah.
sell stuff, loan money out, it just works. And that's not the case every single time. So cash flow is a big deal. I have a report that I run every morning, like an Excel spreadsheet. I'm the nerd that wakes up at 5 in the morning and is like typing on numbers and figuring out yesterday's numbers and what I'm gonna need for the rest of the week and all of that. But yes, cash flow and what I'm hearing from other pawnbrokers is a big deal this year. Making sure that you have enough sales, service charges, everything coming in to make sure you can fund the business.
Right. So what are some strategies maybe that you've started implementing or thinking about as you head into, I guess, summer holiday season?
So currently right now what we're doing, trying to be more, what's the word? Easy. That's not the right word. I'm trying to call people more on their loans, make sure that they have everything that they need, that they didn't forget, giving them more grace. That's the word I was looking for. Giving them
Yeah.
grace on their loans. Um, just giving them calls and holding on to those loans a little bit longer than I normally would, because I know that
Mm-hmm.
the economy is not great. If I'm struggling, then I know that my customers are struggling. So we're doing that, and then I think one of the biggest keys, and broker gave me the idea, Jeff Wilhelm. He told me about running a spreadsheet every day for cash flow. Like, it's called cash flow requirements. Figuring out, make a list of what you expect to spend that day, and just do it on a daily basis, and that has helped tremendously.
He's a good operator to listen to if you're going to listen to anybody about cash flow. Jeff is probably the right guy to be getting advice from
For sure.
on that. What's the most important piece of advice in general that you'd give to somebody that's just starting out in the industry?
First thing that comes to my mind is just be generous. A lot of times, whenever, and that's probably weird advice, I don't know, but if somebody would give me that advice when I began, I would have looked at them weird, but now I understand it. So just being generous to employees, being generous to customers, being generous in general in life, those things come back to you, whether you believe in God or believe in karma or whatever you have in your life, like those things come back. So the typical pawn shop, not the typical pawn shop, but the typical stereotype of the pawn shop is the opposite of that. And
Yes.
if we're going to do anything to break that trend, then we have to act like it. And that's what I believe.
Yeah, I totally believe that too. And when you say be generous to employees, what does that look like? What's your leadership style? How do you motivate your team? Any special fun things you do for them that can inspire somebody else that's listening?
Yep. So I think that we're one big family up here. We have, uh, my newest employee has been here about 6 months. Everybody else here is 3, 4 years and over. They just stay. I mean, and I think it's because it's fun, because I come in every day and I try to make them have fun. Just make it a fun environment for them to be around. I guess being a smaller operation, I would say, and then being in a smaller town, it's easier for me to get away with that. I can be more lenient with them, giving them sick pay when they don't necessarily have sick pay, giving them vacation time when they don't have vacation time. Just being more of a family than being more of a crack the whip kind of boss, you must do this.
Yeah, that really resonates. I think when you can go the extra mile for employees when they need it, not necessarily in salary and not necessarily, you don't have to be the top payer and the top of everything, but like an extra paid sick day when somebody needs it, or like an extra PTO day to like accommodate them. If you're able to, it's like those are really, in my opinion, small gives for people that are working customer facing every day. Like those things really matter to employees.
Right. And I try to think about that too. Like these people that work for me or work with me, I'm here every day. They're the ones that stay here when I go home at 5 o'clock. They're the ones that are here opening when I don't arrive till 9:30. So you have to
Yeah,
think about those things.
totally. That's awesome. Um, what are some of the ways that you drive new traffic or marketing? Or I mentioned before your website is really awesome. Like how do you um, go about doing those things, like making time for them, prioritizing them, getting new
Right.
people in your store?
Yeah. So I'm a big person on free marketing. I do a ton of, and have in the past, do a ton of free marketing, trying to find the cheapest way possible to get people into the store. One of my biggest things that I do is an email list. I have in my small town, I have over 1,000 subscribers, which is a big deal to me. And not only that, but like a 40% open rate on all of those, which I think is a
That's
big deal
amazing.
too. Uh,
Yeah, that's huge.
but I send that out once a week, and I try to never skip it. And keeping that just in front of them, it costs like $300 a year, and maybe, you know, 30 minutes of my time a week. But keeping that in front of them, sending them out what's coming out for sale is what I typically do, and it gives them the end like they are behind the scenes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So we do
Yeah.
that. We do social media, and when I do social media, I try to make it, funny, clever, involved. I don't just typically just post stuff for sale. I try to get involved with them. Right now, I am just dipping my toes in Google Ads, and I've never done it before, and I'm super skeptical about it. Uh,
Yeah.
but we're trying.
The hard thing about Google Ads is it's always changing. Their algorithms are always changing, and I'm convinced that most of the people there that try to help you don't know what's being updated. So
Yeah.
it's almost impossible to figure it out. I managed Bravo's Google AdWords for a really long time, and it just got so complicated, and it continues to get more and more and more complicated all the time.
Yeah, there's no way. I'm outsourcing all of that. I would not, I can't do that. Like you put me in front of a computer and tell me to write a blog for the website. I'll sit down and do that. I'm not doing Google AdWords
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah. What's the email marketing service that you use?
So I use ConvertKit, which is
Okay.
typically a creator, like influencer brand, but they really got me turned on to it because they would send not like emails with a bunch of images and a bunch of stuff. It was just words. And that I don't know, it spoke to me, I guess. It seemed more
Mhm.
personable. So
Yeah.
that's how I design all of my emails is it's gonna have, hey, subscriber's first name, but it's gonna be the
Mhm.
person's name. And then
Okay.
I'm gonna just make it personable to them. And it's just
Yeah.
text. And then at the end, it's got my name, my signature, and it just seems like it's a personal email from me to you.
Yep. That's awesome. I bet that's 40% open rate is huge. I think average is like maybe 5%, maybe 6%. So
Right. You have to
that's,
send emails that people want to open.
yeah. Text is an interesting format too. It's funny like how what people digest changes. We took this such a different swing from text to images to videos to, and now I think people just want simplicity sometimes. You just want to read an email. You don't want to watch a long video or, get hit with like a million images. It
Yeah.
happens
You got to think
everywhere
about
anyways.
how many emails are they getting a day?
Yeah.
I delete probably 50 a day without reading them.
Yeah, same. So many emails.
Yeah.
Let's talk about being the president of the Alabama Association. How'd you get into that? How are you inspired to do that? And what kinds of things is the Alabama Association working on?
So I got into that with my former boss. My former boss was a big into the APA, and he was involved in it a lot. And I just kind of through osmosis had to do that too. Um,
Cool.
when I first started, I don't know if I was like super excited about it because I wasn't the volunteer guy, I wasn't I just didn't do that. But getting involved in it and being able to net with other pawnbrokers that are in your area, talk to them, help serve them, help serve their communities, our communities, like it's just something that is the right thing to do to get involved in. So I'm president right now of the Alabama Pawnbrokers Association. Um, we are currently in three different modes right now. We're in membership drive where we're trying to drive new members to the association. It's $100 a year, probably the easiest $100 check you'll ever write to support your industry, your local industry. We're a part of obviously MPA, NSSF, like we do them all. But
Yeah.
APA, if you're in Alabama, is one of the easiest checks to write. So we're doing membership drive. We're also doing industry partner drive, where we're reaching out to vendors who want to partner with us, who want to get direct access and spotlights with our members. And then also we're trying, and this is like hush hush, kinda. I don't know why I'm saying it here, but we're trying to get continuing education some for Alabama pawnbrokers. Um, there's a couple states that have continuing education requirements, and I think it's a big deal. Like, I think when you can put continuing education and require pawnbrokers to go to conferences or to take classes or courses, even if it's something minimal, it makes us as an industry better as a whole. We're not just out here, flying by the seat of our pants. We actually have some sort of training in this.
Yeah. The education piece is so important. I know of a handful of states that do that, and going to the trade shows, like the speakers are so awesome. I've never heard anybody leave a trade show saying, I didn't learn a dang thing. Like,
No.
something is always learned. Friendships are made, like they are worth the time and the day or two away from the store. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people that I talk to are like, I don't have time to take away from the store. But that's why you go, so that you could learn about how to take time away from the store. It's like you'll learn how to hire and retain and actually be able to step away. Everybody should be able to step away from the business for a day or two and feel comfortable doing that. So,
Yeah. That's a problem that every pawnbroker has, is letting go. Letting go.
yeah, maybe just every business owner in general. That's a
Right.
really hard the control thing, or the micromanaging, or letting other people make decisions that you're used to making. It's good though. It's important.
Yeah.
All right, so one last question to wrap up. What is one piece of advice that you'd give to a pawnbroker that is either thinking of switching to Bravo, in the middle of switching, or just like days after go live?
Okay, so best advice I can give anybody who's switching to Bravo, during the whole switch, what's it called?
Conversion.
Conversion. There we go. That's the word. All right. So during the whole conversion process, you're going to be given like a demo of Bravo to be able to play with. So what I did on our old system, I have my pawnbrokers, my employees, take the tickets that they wrote for that day and type them into the demo system. So the same things that they did on our current system, I made them sit down in my office, and they had to enter the customer in, they had to enter the item in, they had to do everything top to bottom in Bravo. They had to do it twice. And we did this for a couple of days until they felt comfortable enough that they could roll with it. Because there was always a question like, hey, how do I do this? I have no clue. Let me call.
Yeah. That's really awesome advice. I think that too, like the double entry is worth it. I've spent a lot of time in pawn shops on their very first day on Bravo. And if you don't go through the sort of muscle memory of being able to write a loan, look up a customer, redeem something, a customer walks in, they're standing in front of the pawnbroker, and they just like look at me like I forgot how to do everything. Because when you're watching videos, it's impossible to retain unless you're actually putting it into practice. It's like you got to watch the video, then you got to go practice it, and practicing it with like dummy data is also not helpful. It's like do it with the actual things that are coming into your store, find it, get good at it. And it really is only 2 or 3 days. Like people can learn Bravo and become really advanced users in 3 days. It's just you have to take what you're doing in your current system and do it in Bravo, and do it before you go live, because learning on the fly is tough. It doesn't make for the best experience.
Yes. And I think that second piece of advice, the day that you go live, at no fault of Bravo, is going to be a fire. You're starting from scratch. I felt like my store had been flipped upside down on its head because we're trying to do new things. But be patient, breathe. It's over in like a week, and you're ready to rock.
Awesome. Any other last pieces of advice for new pawnbrokers or for anybody that's listening to this podcast?
Go get on Bravo. That's the first thing that came to my head. Sorry.
Thanks, Tyler. Well, it was awesome to have you. Thank you so much for spending your time here with us. This was super valuable. I've known you for a long time. I got to get to know you even a little bit better. So this
Yeah.
was awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.